Hello, and welcome back. In this video, we're going to focus on the network neuroscience of creativity. In previous lessons, we discussed how creative thinkers dynamically shift between generative and explorative moments of their creative process. We also discussed the ways in which distinct types of creative thought, such as divergent thinking, convergent thinking, and even spontaneous insight, entail varying degrees of the more intuitive type 1 thinking and the more logical type 2 thinking. This all means that success in creativity, success in creative thinking, entails dynamic exchanges or shifts between associative and analytic thought during generative and explorative moments of the creative process. In this lesson, we're going to introduce new terminology for referring to the type of mental engagement that occurs during creativity and during creative ideation. During our ideational process, we shift between what are called modes of mental or creative engagement. Now, we can refer to these as modes of creative thought. And more specifically, we can talk in terms of engaging in and shifting between an associative intuitive mode, which relies more on type 1 thinking, and an analytic logical mode that relies more on type 2 thinking. In the current lesson, we're going to explore the neuroscience supporting this theory of creative cognition, this theory of creative thought. Insights from creativity neuroscience shed light on how these shifts between modes of creative thought occur on a neuroscientific level, how they happen in the brain. Prior to 2010, creative cognition or creative thought was largely ascribed to laterality and to small-scale specific areas of the brain. Some theories attributed creative thinking to areas in the right hemisphere, whereas analytic or mathematical thought was considered to be the jurisdiction of the left hemisphere. You might have heard of this theory. It's called the lateralization of creativity theory. Now, this lateralization of creativity theory was very popular, especially since the 1970s, but has been largely disproven and is now widely considered to be a neuromyth. Creative thought is now considered to recruit the entire brain, or more precisely, to recruit large-scale neural networks that span across both hemispheres and across the whole brain. Now, regarding creative thought, contemporary creativity neuroscientists have documented 3 large-scale networks that interact in a dynamic way during creativity and during creative thinking. These large-scale networks are called the default mode network, the executive control network, and the Salience Network. The default mode network, called the DMN for short, is comprised of a group of midline and inferior parietal brain areas. This network is known to be active when a person is in a resting state and has been associated with inward focus of attention, self-referencing, introspection, and with mind wandering. In the context of creative thinking, the DMN has been shown to support type 1 thinking, where thought, if you remember, is flexible, intuitive, and relatively unconstrained. The executive control network, or the ECN for short, is comprised of a set of prefrontal and posterioparietal areas, including the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Now, this network is active when a person is engaged in a goal-oriented task and has been associated with decision-making and with intense concentration. As related to creative thought, the ECN has been shown to support type 2 thinking, where thought is specific, analytic, and more constrained, such as during strong, concentrated task engagement. These two networks, the DMN and ECN, interact dynamically during creative thought. The default mode network is considered to support generative moments of ideation that rely on remote associations between mental representations that are stored in our memory. And the executive control network supports more explorative moments of our ideational process that rely on analysis and decision making that are involved in evaluating or selecting our ideas. Now, which network is dominant at any particular moment of the creative process is modulated by a third network that is called the Salience Network. The Salience Network consists of a set of brain areas that include the anterior insula and dorsal anterior cingulate. This network enables us to switch or shift between default mode network and executive control network dominance. Now, depending on the demands of a particular task, a person may favor the DMN or the ECN, and this Salience Network manages or modulates the balance. So what does this mean? What do these whole brain network dynamics suggest regarding creativity? These network dynamics suggest that highly creative people who are skilled and talented in creativity and creative thinking, are able to engage in each mode of creative thought. They're able to engage in the associative intuitive mode and the analytical logical mode. And they're able to shift between these modes and switch between brain networks at the most opportune moments in their creative process. These skills enable highly creative individuals to utilize both intuitive and logical modes of creative thought during generative and explorative stages of the creative process.